Welcome back to the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Paulina Westcott. Our guest today is Christen Makan. She is a professional massage therapist. She is also a mom of 4, which is incredible all by itself. But not only that, she has amazing birth stories to share with us. She has VBAC experience, vaginal birth after cesarean, which I know is a very hot item for a lot of my audience. I'm really excited to get right into the birth stories. Christen, welcome. I'm very excited to have you. And you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, totally. And thank you for having me as well.
Of course.
I grew up in New Jersey and I moved to Clearwater, Florida when I was 19. Did not see myself having children, was just like, probably won't. And then not so quickly, over time, that became, first a mom of 1 girl, and then there was a boy, and then 2 more boys, and now I'm like, okay, I'm a mom. It creeps up on you.
It does. No, I waited. I survived my 20s somehow and avoided having kids, and then finally my husband and I were like, all right, let's do this thing. And suddenly it's just momhood all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I started having kids at 23 and it was the first 3. No, they were all surprises. They were all happy surprises.
That's amazing.
But yeah.
Yeah. So let's dive into it. I'm super excited to hear, I was mentioning to you before we went live that cesarean sections, I hate to admit it. Like, I'd love to be like, I'm so brave. I know everything about birth and I'm like super confident. C-sections scare me. Like, it's a scary thing. And I know that I'm not alone in that. I know that a lot of people have that as a fear, particularly people who are more natural minded. They try for natural births or home births, which is a lot of the people that are watching. C-sections are like the boogie monster. And so I think that the way to handle boogie monsters is to talk about them and to learn about them. And that way you can, reduce fear of them. And that's why super excited to get into the birth stories.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That was the only way I got through it, was just by asking lots of questions and learning stuff and just being like, and also very key, just being willing to experience anything. I was just like, okay, what's going to happen is going to happen. I'm going to get through this no matter what. On the other side, I'm going to still be here. So, yeah.
And it's funny, like, that's very true for C-sections, but I would say that also applies to anything about labor and delivery and I mean, life and parenting,
Yeah. Be willing to experience murals on your walls. Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. So tell us about the first birth. How did that go down?
Well, I was 23 years old, like I said. I had a bit of a rocky relationship with my daughter's dad. We were like on again, off again. But I wanted a birthing center birth. I was like, I'm not doing the hospital. It's my first baby. I'm going to, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the birthing classes. I'm going to do the whole thing. It's going to be great. And he did it with me and it was great. I felt like I definitely learned a lot. But then when it came down to it, I got impatient. And yeah, she was a couple days overdue, maybe. And it's, first baby, usually it's like, don't expect to be right on the due date because it's your first baby. Your body's got to be like, oh, where do all the things go? But I was not having that apparently. So I, right off the bat, like as soon as I was like, oh, I'm a little overdue, I took castor oil, which, my sister-in-law took castor oil at 42 weeks because she was like, I got to have this baby. And it did nothing but make her go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people it does what they say it does. And some people it doesn't. It did it for me.
Wow.
But for me, that was kind of unfortunate because my body was not ready. The baby was a little bit, she's not totally sideways. Transverse is what they say. It's when the baby's sideways. But she was just at a weird angle. And she wasn't, every time she'd start coming down, she would was running into my cervix. My cervix wasn't open. Like all these things, if I had known about them, like really understood them, I would have done things differently. And I guess the midwife on call at the time, she was kind of new. So she kind of freaked out a little bit too.
Oh, that doesn't help.
Yeah. So it was a lot. She actually at one point had to like reach up in there and she was trying to like reposition her. It was like my mom was traumatized by that. She was like, I had to watch that.
That sounds so uncomfortable. I couldn't even tolerate like cervical checks without having reactions.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So that was all at the birthing center. I think in total I was in labor for like 36 hours. So I got to go through a full labor, like all the up to the point where I think I was in transition, but my cervix was so swollen that there was like no way the baby, like she was just like in there. Like, so I did that. I got to experience all of the natural labor part and then the C-section. So I had to recover from both things.
I mean, yay for experience? No.
I'm just like, this happened so that I could tell people about it later.
Jeez.
But
wow.
So at that point I was absolutely, that was for me. That my first time mom, I was like, I don't want a C-section. Absolutely terrified. There's no way that can happen. I'm not going to let it happen. It happened.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
I mean, I basically knew nothing about anything. Got to the hospital. They didn't really explain what was happening as it was happening because it was sort of an emergency because they had to break my water at the birthing center. So they were like, oh, we got to get this baby out. And I was like, cool.
Mm.
They did not knock me out. That's one thing I'm really grateful for is for both C-sections, I didn't have to be knocked out. So they just did the epidural, basically, like the local anesthetic. And so they did that. They gave me something so I wouldn't throw up. I threw up anyway. The surgeon was like, why did you throw up? And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I didn't do it on purpose.
Why did you throw up?
Literally, he's like, why did you throw up? I gave you something so you wouldn't throw up. I'm like, oh, because drugs work all the time.
Jeez.
Although helpful hint for anyone that ends up going through that. Apparently what happened is my blood pressure dropped really fast, and that can make you nauseous and make you throw up. So that's a thing.
Interesting. So like while you were numb and undergoing the C-section, you threw up?
Yep. All of a sudden I was like, I don't feel so good. And luckily I just instinctively turned my head and just threw up over the side of the table.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah, it was an adventure. I was so out of it. And it went fine. Like, they put the sheet up so I didn't see anything. My ex he of course was like looking around the sheet and like looking at it, and I'm like, I don't want to know what you're seeing. But yeah,
wow.
And then they gave her to me. I was kind of out of it, like just from the whirlwind of it all and like no sleep and whatever. And I was
not to mention you were just in labor for 36 hours. Like that's enough to like
I was gone.
Not have you all there.
They gave me the epidural and I fell asleep actually. They put the epidural. I was another thing I was afraid of. I was afraid of the epidural, but if you chill and you like I just was like, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Because my mom, of course, like scared the crap out of me with like, she's like, I got a spinal tap once. And they told me if I moved, then, it could be paralyzed. Like all these things that people say. And you just have to be like, okay,
wow.
You're scared until you're doing it. And then you can't be scared because you got to do it.
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But yeah, so I mean, that was it in a nutshell. Basically, it was. And
baby was healthy. All was well.
She was great. She was perfect. The only thing was, I don't know if this is like a C-section thing or what, and actually it's kind of been a thing with, I think all the kids is with my C-section babies, I made no milk. And then with my VBAC babies, I made some, but it was like, I always basically ended up giving them barley formula, which is great. They're all like happy, healthy babies, but so that also was a thing. But I actually had a friend that she donated some milk for the first night, which I was very grateful for.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So what did you like? What were your takeaways? What did you learn from that first experience?
I learned that I was a lot stronger. Like in everyone, I learned I was a lot stronger than I thought I was, for one thing. And just that bit of like, if you're afraid, just like you said, find out, like ask questions, like just kind of like however you can get yourself to a point where you are like, okay, cool, this is what's happening. Like the more you can like have some kind of like reality for yourself, like, okay, this is what's happening and this is how I'm going to handle it in your head. Like, so I'm going to do. So I learned like just to kind of prepare on the fly for when like things that change.
Mm-hmm.
And that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I actually recovered from it really fast.
That's good.
Yeah, I had a good surgeon. Like, you know, if it had to go that way, it went really well for the way it had to go.
Right. All right. So that was your, so here's the other thing is, you know, that wasn't particularly traumatic, you know, compared to others, but it was certainly not the way I imagine you wanted it to go or the way you saw it going originally. So did you, like, some people will have an experience like that and they'll be like, no more, I'm done, I don't want any more kids. Did that ever go through your head?
Yeah, there were definitely points where I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Mm-hmm.
But I did.
and again.
Yeah. Well, part of it is, so my first, like the first 3 kids have different dads. Like my husband now, and my last 2 kids are his. So it was, you know, it's a thing of like, you get into a relationship and you're like, I love you so much, let's have babies. Even if, you know, I was 23 at the time, my boyfriend at the time was 19. He was not ready for a baby. He was terrified.
Oh my goodness.
So the pregnancy was a little bit rocky because like I cried so much. There was so much crying.
Wow.
But we got through it. And he's a great dad. He's still in our, like, we're still like friendly. And my daughter goes back and forth between us, no problem. And he is a great dad. So it worked out fine. But it was
That's
like,
great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So then you, I mean, spoiler alert, but then you had a successful VBAC.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that.
So from the beginning, when I found out I was pregnant with my second, I was like, I'm not doing another C-section. I don't, like, of course I was told, oh, now you have to have C-sections and all, you know, all the things that you get told about, you know, because it's easier for the people doing it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I was like, nope. So I wanted to go back to the same birthing center, but they were going to close. They took me for a little while and then they had to transfer me because I forget if it was like, they were like, oh yeah, you can't do a birthing center birth after a VBAC or after a C-section. It was something like that where they were like, yeah, we can't keep you. So what I ended up doing was transferring to a hospital, but it's Tampa General, that's one of the local hospitals here. And they're very VBAC friendly. They have a whole, like, they have, you know, they're associated with USF, the Florida, was it University of South Florida, I think? Mm-hmm. And so they have a whole team of midwives, and like, it's like they have a whole thing devoted to VBACs, and they're like, wow. They're great.
So question about that, if you don't mind. If somebody is considering or you know, going for a VBAC, what do you look for? Like, I feel like just asking a hospital, are you VBAC friendly, isn't really enough. Like, what do you ask? How do you find out if it's a good choice or not?
So I found out these things I actually didn't know that. I didn't really know that they were super VBAC friendly. I just was, the birthing center was like, try the USF midwives at Tampa General, because that's where we send all our moms that we have to refer. And I was like, cool. So it was basically, for me, it was by experience, but now they have all these groups now, like on Facebook. I'm a part of a group, ICAN of Tampa Bay, and ICAN is the International Coalition or International C-Section Awareness Network or something like that. But it's for moms that want to be back or have had VBACs. So that's a really good resource, because lots of people ask on there, where do you go? And of course, all the mom groups on Facebook, like, there's so many people you can ask.
Yes. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I basically just, when I was like, they interview you, but you're also interviewing them. So you can like ask them, so what do you do? Like, what do you consider high risk? And will you let me do a trial of labor? And will you, Can I labor in any position I want? And can, and everything from them was like, yep. Like they've seen it all. So they're just like, yeah, we're not worried.
That's awesome. That's comforting too.
Yeah. And they do if you ever get referred out, like if you start, like my advice, like from my huge takeaway from all of this is like, if you want to do a VBAC, you start out with a midwife that, like I started out with my last one with Cheryl Moore, who's like famous around here. She like does all the home births. And even though I wasn't going to do a home birth, she still she saw me up until I went back to Tampa General. So
wow,
that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, not to go off on a tangent, but like, it's so important. I should just talk about myself. Before I had kids, I would say, okay, well, pregnancy is just like a mechanical thing, right? Like it's a body thing. Like the body creates a baby, and there's the placenta and whatever, and you learn about the stages of labor and all these like mechanical sort of the gears of the whole operation, right? What I didn't realize until I was very late into my first pregnancy is your mind is a really, really important component of how your labor and your pregnancy, honestly, how it all goes, because your hormones are very much connected to your emotions. And so if you're like super stressed or super misemotional, or, there's a lot of pressure or fear, anxiety, all these negative emotions, they actually really can negatively impact your outcome.
Yes.
And I know that it's easier said than done, like be happy, like cool, like, but it is important to at least know that, so you can take effort, make efforts to, okay, there's somebody who's super toxic in my life and is just putting negativity there and making me doubt all of my decisions about my pregnancy, the choices that I'm making. Good. That person is not allowed to talk to you about your pregnancy decisions anymore. If that's the effect that they're having on you, you just say, look, and you don't have to be mean about it, but you just say, respectfully, what you're doing isn't helping my already hormonal state. We're not going to talk about this. I appreciate that you care about me. I appreciate that you want me to have, do it the way that you want me to do it, but I'm going to make my own decisions, and we're just not going to talk about it. I'll let you know when the baby comes. I'll be very excited to have you come visit, or whatever, whatever. Like, it's such an important thing because when you have practitioners that are fear-mongering or people that are making you doubt whether or not you can do it, you're gonna be impacted by that, and for greater or lesser degree, to some degree it'll impact.
Yeah, totally. I definitely ran into was it with him? And not so much in my third. I definitely ran into practitioners that were definitely, oh, well, this is going to happen, and and I'm just like, oh, really? Okay, like, nope. Luckily, yeah, a lot of it, you got to smile and nod and just be really, really know what your viewpoint is. This is my viewpoint on it. No matter what anybody says, I'm not going to let them shake me, because I know this is going to be okay. I'm going to make it be okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, so you were saying you had this amazing midwife that you were seeing right up until you went to the hospital.
Oh, right. So, that was actually my last pregnancy, but with the second one, I went back to the birthing center that I went to with my first. I had a different midwife, I think, that I saw, but she, either way, they were like, yeah, you got to go to Tampa General. I was okay, fine. It was pretty uneventful pregnancy. I had no issues. I waited too. I actually waited until I was almost in my third trimester to even go to the birthing center and establish care. Like, I was just like, oh, I've done this before.
That's awesome.
So I did that, and they're like, oh, we got to do this test and this. And sometimes, like, when you do that too, not that I'm advocating that anyone should do this, but sometimes when you do that, they're like, we missed the window for this test. We're just not going to do it. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, there is something to that. Like, there are people who have, what do they call them? Wild pregnancies. I'm not necessarily, like you said, I'm not advocating for it, because I'm the kind of mom that does enjoy having the anatomy scan and making sure that they have all 10 toes and 10 fingers and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But some people do. And all of this technology is fairly new in the grand scheme of things, like, anyway. That's probably a whole nother podcast. We could talk about testing and whether or not it's necessary to do all the medical normal procedures, you know.
Yeah, I definitely have gotten by with doing pretty much the minimum for all of them because and it's great when I have like a history of being super healthy and whatever, and they all, you know, every baseline test they do, they're like, oh, you're fine. I'm like, yep.
Yeah, I knew that already. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for validating that for me.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing out of the ordinary with the second one, basically, I was 31 at that point, and so I went to they have you do a consult with maternal fetal medicine when you transfer to the hospital, and they were like, oh, you're 31 and you're an advanced maternal age. I'm like, excuse me, I'm 31. I'm not 41. And even then, like, come on.
Advanced, so really? My first baby was born on my 30th birthday.
Right? That's more and more common these days. But yeah, they literally told me that. They gave me a 65% chance of success for a VBAC. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's more than 50. So let's do it, you know, whatever. And then at 39 weeks, basically, I think the doctor was like, cool. So if you don't go into labor tonight, we're going to induce you. And I'm like, 39 weeks, really?
Wow.
But I was like, oh, cool. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. Like, I'm not coming back till I'm in labor.
I know. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to show up at your house to induce you? Like,
yeah, I'm like, you send the induction police to my house.
That should be a comic strip, the induction police.
Right. So needless to say, I did not show up the next day.
Right.
I showed up at 40 weeks and 3 days when I was in labor.
Nice.
And I walked in. I actually had a really good experience because I basically walked in. They gave me this amazing midwife, like out of nowhere. Like they were like, oh, we have a midwife on call. So they gave me the midwife. She basically left me alone with I brought my sister-in-law who's a doula, and I brought a family friend who has had 4 babies at home. And we had this book, The Birth Book by Heidi Mall, which I'm sure you've heard of. And so she had, my friend had me read that before we went to the hospital. And we just followed like the breathing and whatever. And that was my only I didn't do it like the Bradley method classes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my only standard
training.
Yeah. Was just reading that book. And it was amazing. Like it was like, what was it? Like 16 hours or something, start to finish.
Wow. And
I pushed for an hour and a half, and I had quite a tear. I think it was 3rd degree, whatever, you know, basically like all the way up. That was fun. But I tell people to this day, I'm like, I would rather recover from a tear than recover from a C-section.
Wow.
Like hands down. And people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, nope. A lot less scary.
I mean, same, but that's coming from a place that I tore with my first, but I have nothing, like I can't compare it to a C-section. I just have that, the fear, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just because of there's not as many risks really from like things that can happen from having a scar from a tear. It's just like, okay, it's down there. There's no major organs are going to fall out. Like nothing, nothing,
It hurts to pee. That's
yeah. Oh, and everything else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And everything else.
Yeah.
Somehow these podcast episodes always turn to poop. There's poop involved. I don't know, guys. I'm sorry. It happens.
It's down there. My great grandmother used to say, no matter what you start talking about, you always end up talking about poop.
I agree with that. It's like, especially if you're a mom, because if you're talking about birth or you're talking about your kids or babies, poop is going to come up, man. Everybody poops. There's a whole book about it, you know?
That's right. But yeah, so that was probably the only thing. That was the worst part of it, was just that I tore. I mean, that feeling though, the comparison, like I love all my kids. The moment I first saw them all, I fell in love. But when you push out your kid, this sounds so weird. When they come out of your vagina and they get held up and put on your chest. Like you actually, and you hold them and there's nothing in between you and them. There's no like wires or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I cried, like I sobbed like a baby. I was just like, hi, baby. And then I lost it.
I have tears in my eyes. That is the most incredible high. I've never, like I tell people, I've never done drugs. But I imagine that's what it feels like, you know, like the high that people talk about. It is something else. You have the little squish and they're all gross in, like, objectively speaking. It's not like a doll that comes, like, there's like stuff, you know, and it's just somehow it's an overwhelming feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, you actually are like, you're outside of yourself looking at yourself and the baby and you're like, is this real? Did it really? We did it.
Yes. And it's weirdly anesthetic, I would say. Like, you're exhausted, you know, your nether regions are in all sorts of disarray, whether you tore or not. There's swelling, it's just not a pretty sight. It's a lot of work, man. Like, it's a lot of work. And like, there's pain and there's discomfort or whatever, and then all of a sudden there's this baby, and that's all there is. There is no exhaustion, there is no pain, there's no anything except the magic of that beautiful baby.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting stitched up, and she's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do some lidocaine and blah blah blah. I'm gonna do this and that." And all I felt were like little pinches. Not like, I was just like, "Let me just look at this baby."
Amazing. I know. So I know that not everybody has that experience. So like, I don't want to like set the expectation that happens every single time, because I definitely know people that were like, stitches were literally the worst part of my entire labor. So there is difference in people's experiences, but this is a way that it can go.
Totally. Yeah. And there's definitely, yeah, I mean, you can say that about definitely every part. It's just like, it can, as many ways as there are for something to go. So many, like as many people as there are, it's different for like literally everyone.
Yeah. And different for one person, birth to birth. Like one mom can have 8 kids, and every single one of them can be an entirely different experience that has none similarity. Like,
totally.
Yeah. Well, so you said that your recovery was fairly good then after this first VBAC?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty much just the like recovering from the stitches, which, you know, that sucked. It sucked, but it was like I could still, like, I could get up pretty easily. It was just like sitting down was actually, I was like, okay. But and you know, you don't want to stand for too long. Like, just these are just all things. Any birth is, you know, you kind of just want to chill while you're recovering.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like they healed up just fine. I think I do remember like going to have my check after, like I went to the midwife, and I was like, she's like, do you want to see what your stitches look like? And I'm like, I don't know, do I? And she's like, here, take a look. And I'm like, oh my God, I look like Frankenstein. I was just like, why did I look?
I would not. I didn't want to see. I was like, I can feel plenty enough. I don't need other senses involved in this.
Well, it kind of was like I wanted to like kind of like give me more like an orientation to where everything was, so I could like tell it where to go. Like, that sounds
no. I totally understand that. Yes.
So but then I was like, okay, cool, I saw it once, I don't need to ever see it again, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, so that was pretty much it. And he was, you know, he was such a chill little baby, and so I was like, oh, this is great. So then, of course, I was like, cool, I'm going to do VBACs for, you know, if I have any more kids, it's how I'm going to do it. But then, I mean, that kind of leads me into the third one, I guess.
Yeah, dive right in.
So I did not get to do that with my third one because I will say this. This is where just that don't have toxicity around you, like chill out, like, that's key. I had a job at the time when I got pregnant with my third. I actually got pregnant with my husband, my boyfriend then. We got pregnant and I actually had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. And then I don't know how, like 6 months later or something, I got pregnant with my third. But in that time period, I had a very stressful job. I was like dealing with a lot of just really stupid things. And I was probably the most in fight flight I have ever been in my life at that period of time. Like it was like it was crazy. But so I think that had a lot to do with it. Basically with my third, I ended up having a placenta previa, which is basically where there can be degrees of it but it basically part of the placenta or all of the placenta, in my case, it was the entire placenta it was covering the whole cervix. That's what it was. It's how much of the cervix does it cover. So basically when that happens, you don't want to have contractions. You don't want to try and push the baby out. This is from what I understand, because they can go right through the placenta. And then you're basically putting both your lives at risk at that point, because you've just cut off, you've basically, the baby comes through its life supply as it's trying to be born, and it still needs the placenta until it actually gets out. So
right.
They're like, yeah, automatic C-section. When they found it, I was 28 weeks. And they were like, oh, it looks like you have a bit of a placenta previa. And I was like, okay, cool. What does that mean? Like, what? So I, read up on it and whatever. My husband is like big into Reddit. So he's like all over Reddit, like looking up, okay, who's had experience with this? And did you have to have a C-section? And what happened? And was it easy? And, all that stuff. So my first initial reaction when I found that out, I was terrified. I was like, I don't want to have a C-section. I don't want to have this, because basically also with that condition, you can bleed to varying degrees. And
like throughout the pregnancy.
Yes. So while you're still pregnant, you can bleed. So they, I guess they try to, like, depending on the degree of the previa, like how much over the cervix it is, they try to have you on bed rest, like in a third trimester or whatever. I did not listen. I, going to the grocery store, I'm doing dishes, I'm doing laundry. I'm like, and my ligaments tend to like get a lot of stress put on them when I'm pregnant. So, my belly's like hanging down. And so one night I went for a walk around the block because I wasn't feeling great. And I was like, I just need to go for a walk. I came back, walked into the kitchen, called for my husband for something else. And as he comes walking in, this cascade, it was like having my period like all at once. And I was like, and all I could get out was hospital, hospital, hospital. And he's like, okay.
Oh, wow.
So we just dropped everything and went. It turns out they're like, oh, this isn't that much. It could have been worse. I was like, well, that's good to know. So obviously I freaked out because I had no experience with it. But they were like, yeah, they measured the blood that was coming out, whatever. And it stopped while I was at the hospital.
Mm-hmm. How far along were you in this?
I think it was 29. I was 29 weeks, I think, at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, 29
okay.
or 30, 29, 30. Yeah, something like that. So they basically kept me overnight, made sure that the bleeding had totally stopped. They're like, okay, you're good. We'll send you back home, but you need to be on bed rest. You need to lay down like most of the day. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And I did okay, kind of. I was still doing stuff, but I tried to like take it easy. And if I felt odd at all, I would like immediately lay down and whatever. Mm-hmm. But then I think 2 weeks later, in my sleep, I started bleeding. I was like, oh my! And that
did it wake you up?
Yes, like as it started happening, I just knew. Like I knew something was wrong. I woke up. I look. My bed sheets were soaked. I was like, oh no.
Wow.
So back to the hospital we went.
My goodness.
Yeah, it was terrifying. But that's another thing where if you know about it, then you can do something about it. Like if you know about it ahead of time. So even though I was taking it easy, I just, the blood vessels were in the perfect position where they got jostled. And so they did that.
Wow.
But, and even though I felt like, I was like, oh no, I'm going to bleed out. It's harder than you think. And I got to the hospital again. They're like, okay, that's not, it's not a crazy amount of blood. It's fine. They still gave me a transfusion, I think, or an iron. It's like one of those things. Because I also tended to be anemic in my pregnancies. So they were just like, let's we'll just be safe. And I was like, okay, fine. But from that point on, I basically spent a month in the hospital. They had me, because they were like, you will be on bed rest. You are staying here. I was like, okay. So I stayed there. It was super boring. It was, I was alone in a hospital room all like forever.
Wow.
The nurses were really nice though. This was at like a more like a local hospital, like closer to my house. So, but still the nurses were really nice. They took really good care of me. They even had a massage therapist, of which I am one there. That was she came to rub my shoulders, which I was like, oh yeah. But then I basically just all that waiting though, it like freaks you out more because you're not doing it yet. So you're sitting here anticipating it the whole time.
Right. And there's no distraction of the usual stuff of life, right?
Yeah. So like my husband would come visit me every once in a while when he could, but he was home with the other kids. And
right.
Yeah, so he would come when he could. He brought the kids to see me like the week before I was scheduled for my C-section. And they were like, are you okay, mommy? I'm like, I'm fine. Totally fine. Like everything's going to be fine. And then basically they wanted me to get to 34 weeks and then they would do the C-section. And I was doing really well by that point. Like I didn't have any other episodes. There was one point where I started having contractions. And so they came in and they gave me a mega dose of magnesium, which was crazy. Like it literally, because it's like 5,000 milligrams of magnesium. Like, and they do it in chunks. So there's like, 2,000 here or whatever, but still it's a lot. And that was another time I experienced my blood pressure drop, and then I threw up because my blood pressure dropped so fast.
Interesting.
So that can happen. But it like laid me out. Like I was having these contractions and having a panic attack because I was having contractions. I knew I shouldn't be having contractions. And then they like pushed the magnesium, and I like my muscles like forcibly relaxed. It was the weirdest feeling. Like
wow.
All of a sudden. So that was kind of scary, but I was like, okay, now I know this is a thing. And then from then on, I was fine until the point where they came and got me. Like they were going to actually wait till 36 weeks. But at that point I was like, you know what? I was like, if baby's lungs look okay, like if everything seems okay, let's just do it. And like, let's just do it. It's fine. Like, cause I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And I don't want to be like constantly like, it was constantly like constant fear of like, oh, you could go into labor and you don't want to, if you go into labor, then we have to do an emergency C-section when we'll knock you out. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Is that a thing? Like emergency C-sections means you get knocked out completely?
From what, like a true emergency, like if you're like bleeding a ton or like if something like really dangerous is going on and they need to get you like under,
they're not going to do an epidural.
They just knock you out because they can't wait for the epidural. They're like, nope.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I was like, good to know.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
I mean, I feel like there probably have been, I'm trying to remember. I had a friend that had to have like a true emergency C-section because she had a previa and she was bleeding, and they were like, or like going something like that, going into premature labor or something like that. And they were basically, I don't remember if they actually knocked her out or not, but that was one of those kind of things. But,
interesting. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I had a really good, basically, one thing, if you end up having to have a C-section, it's good to educate yourself on the drugs they might use. Because there's only like a finite list of ones that they might use. And if you just kind of familiarize yourself with, because you can say, I want this one, I don't want that one, like that kind of thing. You can like have that conversation. And if you're like, if you know about it ahead of time, I was able to do that with my anesthesiologist. I was like, hey, you're going to use this. Please don't do that. I'd rather you use blah. He's like, okay, cool. Totally. No problem. So like, if you can, that's one way you can have control over like your outcome as far as like how you feel during and after and all that kind of stuff.
That's very interesting. I'm going to have to look into that. I mean, for for myself, but also because I have a lot of people that are, they're very interested in finding out all this kind of stuff. So I feel like that would be a very, very useful resource. Maybe you can help me out later on, like off air. We'll talk about it and see if you can guide me in the right direction for that.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big thing around here. So I can give you the document that I have on it.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Yeah. But other than that, he was super healthy. Like everyone was like so impressed with him. Like cause he came out, I think he was like 5 pounds at 34 weeks, which is, that's not bad. Like,
wow,
that's a decent weight for a preemie. He was in the NICU for a month, all 3 weeks, a month, something like that. But he did great. He was just like, as soon as like I let him know, I was like, hey dude, like what you need to do to get out of here and come home with me is you need to eat, you need to grow. And he was like, check. And this kid, both of my last two, they're like big boys.
Nice. That's awesome.
So yeah, that was basically like the most excitement was just the leading up to it. And then but then once I was doing it, I was absolutely terrified. But then once I was doing it, there was like this cold clarity. I was just like, okay, we're doing this. Let's get through it. And then we just did it. Yeah.
That makes sense. So then how soon after that did you become pregnant for the 4th time?
Let's see. I think he was 2. Yeah, my 3rd was 2. And then I found out I was pregnant with my 4th. And my initial reaction was, I was like, no, I can't do this. Like what? Because of course, when, as I'm getting the C-section, like at the end of it, she's like stitching me up and she's like, so you're going to want to have C-sections if you have any more kids from here on out. And I'm like, thank you for the information. I appreciate that. I'm like, no. So I immediately was like, I basically told my body, I was like, look, we're not having a placenta previa. The placenta is going to be on the back and it's going to be here and it's going to be this. And I literally, from the moment I found out I was pregnant, I was doing that. And I did not have a previa. The placenta was in a great location. I had an amazing pregnancy for my 4th. I got massage. I got adjusted every 2 weeks, like from the moment I found out I was pregnant. And that, I can't even tell you how much of a difference that made just between my second VBAC and my first VBAC.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, am I going to be able to do this? And by that point I was 39 having my 4th kid. And I was like, is my body going to be able to do this? And I did great. Like I did better than I had with any other pregnancy.
Wow.
So I was very happy about that.
Did you find a chiropractor that was like specifically specialized in pregnancy?
Yeah, it's called Webster certification. So if anyone ever needs that, I highly recommend it. And it's amazing the things that they can do. Like because like I said, I had that trouble with my ligaments. And by that point I was doing massage full time. Like that's all I was doing for work. And I was like lugging table around. Like I was doing all kinds of stuff that I was like, should I be doing this? But I did. I worked up until I basically went, okay, cool. My last month or last 3 weeks or something, I'm taking off from then. Yeah. And I need it. But then that's
a physical job. Like lugging tables, yes, but the massage itself, like that is a very physically demanding job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I found out my body actually prefers that. Like I did way better doing a physical job than I did when I was pregnant with my third. Pregnant with my 3rd and doing. I had a desk job. Like I was sitting all day. My body was so not happy. So I actually I did better with that. Some, everybody's different. I'm sure there's some people that are like, yeah, like whatever. But I was tired. It was rough. And I did have like my ligaments started pulling in my second trimester. I started having ligament pain, and my chiropractor was like, if you're feeling like this now, just wait.
Oh,
I was like, oh, good. She kept me straight, so it was good.
That's good.
Then as far as the birth, it was beautiful. Like all the things I had learned all the way through, all the reading I'd done, talking to my sister-in-law, talking to Cheryl, the midwife that we use here, like a lot of people use here for home births, just like sucking up all the data and also just being in a place in my life where I was like, I felt calmer, so it was so much easier to calm down, to relax and like just let my body do its thing. I actually, I went to 41 and 3. Nobody threatened me with an induction this time, which was nice. And they gave me like a 98% chance of success because I'd already had one. That's another thing. If you have one successful VBAC, you have increased chances of having a second successful one because they've seen that you can do it already.
Interesting.
So
okay.
They give you less of a hard time, which is nice.
So you keep saying these percentages. Do they have like some sort of like test? Like are there a finite number of like factors that are involved in whether or not you're going to have success?
Yeah, or for what they think, like for the standard or whatever. Yeah, there's like a whole checklist. Like when they do the consultation for letting you have a trial of labor or not, they basically look at like, have you done it before? How old are you? Which I'm like, whatever. I had like what your history of like having whatever diseases or whatever. Like my mom has a kidney disease, and I technically have it too, but it's super mild. Like basically my kidneys make cysts, but they're not huge and they work perfectly fine. And so one of the things they brought up at the consult, there was like, oh, well, we really need to be checking your blood pressure, and because that can help with kidney stuff. And I've never had high blood pressure. Like it's not a thing. And I was just like, okay. But they didn't make a huge deal out of it. She was just like, you should probably keep your eye on that. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I forget what some of the other stuff is, but yeah, they check all that stuff, but it's really more for, if you do it, like take it as data, just be like, cool, I know these things now. And you make up your own mind whether you're going to do it or not. And they'll still let you do it. Like they might give you a hard time and make you think you can't do it, or that they're not going to let you do it, but you can still do it. You can insist.
Right. I mean, it's like the doctor who tells you, you have to come in tomorrow for an induction. What are you going to do? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what a roller coaster, huh? Like,
yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, it was amazing. And the labor was like so much faster. Like it was my second vaginal birth. And I let my body like literally let it do like so much stuff. Like I did so much prep work. I was like, had Braxton Hicks for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks until I actually went into labor. When I went into labor, I was rocking on this birthing ball and walking and I could feel him like moving down slowly. And he was low for a while, but because I did all that and I just like let it chill, by the time they they admitted me and whatever, I basically even went past the point where I could have started pushing, but they didn't check me until they were like, you're in the car, you have to poop. Is it gonna come out whether you can you make it to the toilet or not? And I'm like, no. So by that point I probably could have pushed, but because I let my body just start moving him down, basically they're like, oh, cervix was totally clear, no swelling whatsoever. He came out, I think 3 pushes, like bam.
Amazing.
And I basically didn't tear, which I was like, wow. Like I thought I had the idea that because I had torn once, it was going to happen again, but nope. So yeah, it was great.
That's amazing, man. Like that is so cool. It's so cool. Like what you said about letting your body do it. I very thoroughly relate to that. Like I had 2 home births. They were both absolutely incredible. My first was a lot of work, and I was like resisting the pain and the contractions, and I was like, just like mentally like, I don't like this, you know?
Yeah.
And the second time I was like, let's go, let's do this. Like I was working with my body, and every contraction I could feel him moving lower and lower. And like, it was intense. I am not one of those, like I've seen birth videos where people like through a contraction. That's not how I am. That is not me. I love those videos. I think they're beautiful. That's not me. I am loud, and my husband takes a beating. I was like holding on his arms, like throwing him into the washing machine in the bathroom as I'm laboring on the toilet. It was quite the, quite the experience for him. But that said, I just went with it. Like at one point, my body's like legs up. So I'm like putting my leg up on a sink, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just going to go with it. And it was what I needed to do. And then it was like, I actually ended up not pushing at all. I never got checked because I thought I had more time. My midwife got there 20 minutes before my baby arrived. And she was like, do you feel pushy? I'm like, no. And then I had another contraction. I'm like, yes. She's like, how about we get you off the toilet? We're having a baby. I'm like, no, we're not. Because I was in a crazy delusional state that I wasn't going to have a baby until the birth pool was filled. My baby had other plans. His self-determinism won over my self-determinism in that moment. So, yeah. So anyway, but like I was just like there on the birth ball, just leaning on it. And suddenly I was like, oh, he's going to fall out of me. Like I'm not pushing, and he's about to come out. I remember I looked at my husband like, yeah, it was nuts. I always thought that people were lying. Like people say, oh, some people don't have to push. And I'm like, I'll save the swear words, but that's not true. That's a lie. That is fiction. But yeah, no, he just fell out of me basically. Like his head came out, the water broke at the same time, and then his body came out all in one contraction. To be fair, he was also like a pound smaller than my first kid. So I'm pretty sure that he just like had all the room. I don't know. It was crazy. It was completely unreal.
That's amazing.
But the difference was that I just, like you said, like you just let your body do its thing. Your body knows what to do. It's this amazing machine that is just like designed to do this thing, Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we have a few more minutes before we wrap up here. I would love to get from you, like if you were you're talking to a mama who is pregnant and whatever, let's say just generic pregnant mama. What are, having experienced everything that you experienced, which is a lot, what advice would you give?
Wow. I would say have a good plan, do your research, like know the things that are going to be important to you, like what is a deal breaker for you and what isn't. And then be okay with even the deal breaking things going awry. Like just have your ideal scene, but then be like, okay, and if it doesn't go that way, then have a plan B and a plan C if you can, or if not, then just be willing to experience anything. Number 2, yes, keep the toxic BS out of your life as much as you can. Like, be as chill as you can. You're growing a baby. Give yourself some grace. Don't expect yourself to be like Superwoman. Like, oh, I've seen other women work well all the way up to they go into labor. Like, if that's not you, that's not you. Like, whatever. Don't stress about it. And then number 3, while you're doing it, do what you're doing while you're doing it. Not that your body's going to give you much of a choice, but but really just take each moment as it comes. It's for a lot of people, like for 90 whatever % of people, sometimes it hurts like a mother. And it did, like for me, for natural birth is not everyone's cup of tea, but man, is it gratifying. Like and you just get through it each moment at a time. Have somebody with you that you trust. If it's your husband, your partner, whatever. For me, it was my sister-in-law. I did have my husband there, and he was great, but he's more like makes the jokes to like lighten the mood. That's like his bag. And my sister-in-law, I think at one point I bit her fingers while I was in labor. And she was just like, yes, do it. And
this is Taylor?
Yes.
I'm gonna have her. I'm gonna have her on the podcast very soon, and then I'll be asking her if any of her clients have ever bit her. Like,
and she'll be like, "Oh no, oh yeah." But yeah, like I'd say those are the most important things. Like really trust yourself, trust your body, trust the process. Know what you know, do what you're doing, and just so when the time comes, just have your core like ride or die bestie like with you that will help pull you through it and keep your mind on like, okay, this is what we're doing. Yes, you can do it. I know you feel like you can't, but you can, and you will get through it. It'll be messy and it'll be crazy, but you'll do it.
Yeah, and look, you are very much alive, and you're even laughing as you're telling these, to some rather frightening stories.
Yeah.
And look, you're here, and you're bright and alive. Your kids they're healthy and happy, and all's well that ends well, right?
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. That was quite the like always. The hour flew by. I definitely want to have you back on to talk specifically about your professional side of your life as a massage therapist. You work with pregnant mamas. If you want to promote your business and what areas you serve, just in case somebody's watching and that's in your area and is looking for a massage therapist that will help them reduce the stress and reduce the toxic environment that may be surrounding them in their pregnancy.
Yeah, I mean, I just go by my name, like I am my business. So Christen Makan, LMT, that's my Facebook page. And I mostly work on people. My office is in Clearwater. So I've had people come to me. I actually have people come to me from Brooksville even. But yeah, which is about an hour away. So, but wow. That's where I am. Yeah, I'm in Clearwater. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. What's that?
I said, look me up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description so people can find you easily. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to have you back on. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.